David LaBelle's not on yet. David Zerkessel and the next generation of Kessel is on as well, but David has not arrived yet. He had a hard time getting on yesterday. I don't know what it is. He had a hard time getting on the screen yesterday. That's true. Okay. So yesterday we began learning the meaning of Torah as inheritance. 2 days ago, we learned about Torah as a payment, how the effort that's needed to study Torah and how commensurate to our effort there is gain and knowledge in Torah, not just knowledge in Torah, but that but more than just the knowledge in Torah, there is not just a distraction to the Yetzer Hara, but this Torah study gives power to the godly soul and weakens the animal soul. And yesterday we learned about the second element in Torah, Torah's inheritance, that through Torah we're able to inherit the godly sparks that have fallen into all the physical things. That's the reason why Hashem has exiled us.
I'm really, really sorry.
I'm parents, you looking for another mitzvah?
Thank you so much.
So even though Hashem has sent us to all nations around the world, and it seems like it's a difficult thing, and it's why do you scatter us? But the truth is that the world cannot exist without the various directions of north, south, east, and west, says the Talmud, and so too can the world not exist without the Jewish people. The word world also means concealment. The purpose of the concealment is that we should remove the concealment. And how do we remove the concealment? Is through the study of Torah. Torah illuminates the various places that we are in the world. That's how we're able to extract the godly sparks wherever we are. So the world, the concealment, cannot exist at the Jewish people. The whole reason Hashem concealed himself is in order that we should look for him. And the way we find him is through the study of Torah. Torah illuminates wherever we are. And this is going to help us understand the next section of the Maamar, where we read the verse. Hashem says, I'm going to tell Dr. Bressman he's not needed for the minyan. I think they got another guy. Okay, this opens in the next part of the discourse. In the next part of the discourse, the previous Rebbe discusses the verse, and you'll eat all the nations. So what does that mean? You'll eat all the nations. So people aren't meant to be eaten. So what does that mean? So it begins to explain that it doesn't make sense at first why a person needs to eat food to sustain himself. Food comes from vegetation, food comes from animals, and the human being is from a higher level than the vegetation and the animals. Why do we need to resort to the godly sparks that are in the physical animals and plants, and when we have a higher source than when we have also godly sparks? And the answer is precisely that the godly sparks that have fallen into the vegetation and into the animals has a higher source than the godly source of man. And therefore, in order to nourish ourselves, we have to have the energy of the animals and the energy of vegetation. And by using these things that Hashem has given us and making a bracha before we eat them and after we eat them and using them out for holiness, through this we're able to elevate all the physical things in the world. How to use them for holiness? So we discussed a couple of things. Number one is that when you feed your family, that is an action that, although it's something that's expected, but you have to know what you're doing an act of kindness. And especially if you educate your family to keep Torah mitzvahs, you're using that money, that you're using your business and all the physical things in your life for the sake of Hiddur mitzvah. You're making mitzvahs happen through your business. And more specifically, we started talking about giving tzedakah. Oh, tell that the restaurant that he's not needed to the meeting. Thank you. And so if he's not. So besides giving tzedakah, every person according to their level, and some people give tzedakah more than they're able to give. As we were about to discuss now, are they good without you? They're good without him, right?
Yes, that's 10.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Shoo, one a day. Okay, breathe again. Chaim. Okay, we're talking about using the physical things that Hashem has given us for the sake of holiness and using it out for educating your family, using it for supporting your family, using it for tzedakah, and how people extract the godly sparks and the physical things in their life by using those things for tzedakah. Specifically regarding tzedakah, we're going to discuss the passage in Yirmiyahu, passage of our sages. Godul hamal v'yersin etzin tzedakah, v'amatal akis yesim mikula. It says it's greater someone who lends money than someone who gives tzedakah, and someone who puts into a general fund is greater than all of them. What does this mean? We learned yesterday that there's a special gift, special blessing for someone who lends money to someone at a time when the person is having difficulty. And there's a deeper meaning to this, not when the person you're lending has difficulty. There's a greater blessing when you're lending money to someone else when you're having difficulty. And when you do that, it says in the pasuk in Yeshaya chapter 58, verse 9, Oz tikav Hashem yaneh. When you do that, when you lend money to someone and it's not easier for you, then you will call out to God and God will answer you. Teshava, you'll cry out and God will say, here I am. Okay. The reason why the lender is having a hard time is because of the exile. The Be'emes, there's another book over here somewhere, right there on the fourth shelf. The Be'emes are called Yisrael. The truth is that all the Jewish people should be comfortable. There should be abundance in the physical sense as well. And that's the way it was in the time of Solomon. Not that one. This one. On the fourth shelf. For you. If you want to follow along. Move. Yeah. Page 351. So it's the time of Solomon. It says that everyone had abundance. Everyone had their vineyard and their fig tree. The reason why things are difficult for the lender or for the borrower is because of the exile. What do we say? What's the point that Hashem has scattered us throughout the world? It's in order for us to illuminate the darkness of the world. By our efforts in Torah, by efforts in prayer. And when the Jew knows that this is the point, and he is involved in elevating the physical things that in his life, then he elevates the spark. When a person does business honestly, not just honestly, but he uses out the things in his life for the sake of holiness, and he elevates the godly sparks in the physical things in his life, that's a high level. It says in the Gemara, greater is someone who benefits from their efforts than someone who has reverence for Hashem. In other words, working and earning honest living has a higher value than reverence for Hashem. Why? It says, by the work of your hands you shall eat. It is fortunate for you and it is good for you. So the words "and it's good for you" is something the Torah says only about working. It doesn't say that about reverence for Hashem. It says it's good for you when you work and you're earning by the work of your hands. You do this so that it's known that when the Jewish people are involved in this world in elevating the sparks by doing business honestly and using out the physical things in their life for holiness, they accomplish something similar to the song of the angels. The song and the music of the angels has a parallel in us in this world, working with the physical things in our life and using them for holiness. The divine origin of the renewal for creation every moment is from the highest series of Atzilus Chachabina. It's a chain. Chachma goes, it's like, just like in the body, there's a chain. So too, in the spiritual cosmos, there's a chain between one sphere and the next. This chain begins in the first spheres of Chachamina. Chachma next to Bina, Bina next to Das, and that's how the divine energy reaches this world. So by a person using out the godly energy in his life for Hashem's purposes, what he accomplishes is that he accomplishes a renewal in the godly energy that flows from Chachma and Bina. That's what the Gemara means when it says it's greater to have benefit from the work of your own hands than it is to have fear of heaven. Why? It says fear of heaven. When the Gemara uses the expression fear of heaven, it's talking about what in the Hasidic lexicon is known as yir tata, the lower form of fear. Lower form of fear, as discussed in Tanya, is the fear the person achieves by thinking about the greatness of Hashem in creation and how the divine origin of everything in the world and feeling Hashem's presence and accepting upon yourself the yoke of heaven. When you elevate the physical and bring it the physical to the spiritual, you're not just connecting to the same place as fear of heaven does. Fear of heaven means that you're thinking about the energy of Hashem in creation. Where does the energy of Hashem in creation come from? From the 10 utterances. Where are the 10 utterances? 10 utterances are in the sphere of Malchus. Malchus is the source for creation. That's where God's 10 utterances are. The higher form of fear is feeling the greatness of Hashem beyond creation. That's a Ha'iri law. So the renewal of creation that you are achieving by using the physical things in your life for holiness, it seems to also reach the same place that fear of heaven does, because renewal of creation is also in the same sphere of Malchus. Fear of heaven is in the sphere of Malchus. So your reverence for Hashem is stemming from your appreciation for God's vivifying energy of the sphere of Malchus. And your renewal of creation by elevating the sparks is also in the sphere of Malchus. However, the Rebbe says that there's an advantage in elevating the sparks that surpasses fear of heaven. In order for Malchus to be able to have the power to renew creation, Malchus doesn't have that power intrinsically. Malchus only has that power because of the source of Malchus. It says that the original intent of someone is seen in their final action. So Hashem's final action, so to speak, in the creation of the world, in the sphere of Malchus, that originates from Keser, that originates from God's desire for creation. So Malchus and Keser are related. The beginning is wedged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. So although it's true that renewal of creation happens in the sphere of Malchus, but Malchus has a higher source. And when you elevate sparks, you're not only connecting to Malchus, you're also connecting to the source of Malchus and causing a renewal of energy in the entire spiritual cosmos, not only in Malchus, but in the sphere of Keser, in God's desire for creation. That's the meaning of the words in the Torah.
What moves the desire? What moves the desire? From
what level is desire?
No,
Keser.
what moves it? What moves it?
Our efforts in elevating the sparks of holiness. Look at the last line of the page. That will help us understand the verse. You'll consume all nations. You'll eat all nations. We asked, what does that mean? You're going to eat the nations. What did the Rebbe actually once spoke about how the Jewish people are when other nations were cannibals. God was telling us, don't attack other nations. Don't only conquer the land of Israel, which belongs to you. And that it was just highlighting at the time how advanced the Torah was for its time when the Torah was given. Anyways, so what does Torah mean when it says you should eat the nations? We're not cannibals. What it means is to elevate the sparks that have fallen because of the shattering of the vessels. It says that there are kings that reign in the land of Israel before there were Jewish kings. And those kings represent, again, as we learned yesterday, the seven spheres, the seven kings of the lower parts of the world of chaos. So the seven kings, the explosion of the seven kings, the explosion of the seven spheres, which results in the sparks of holiness falling to the all physical things in this world, there is a reversal of that. There's an inheritance of those sparks by us using those things for the sake of Hashem. So that's the meaning of you should eat all nations, you should consume all nations. What that means is you should elevate the sparks in all the physical things in your life. What's the emphasis of the word inheritance? We get the sparks, but why are we using the word inheritance? What does that word give us? Why? We could say we receive the sparks, we take the sparks. What's the emphasis of the word inheritance? When you inherit something, halacha looks at the one who bequeathed the inheritance and the one who received the inheritance as equals, so that the debts that the one who bequeathed inheritance has are fully upon the shoulders of the one who receives the inheritance. There's no change in the status of the obligation. It's not like in other instances the Torah talks about when you acquire possessions and then you sell them, and the question is now you have creditors. Do the creditors come to you first? Do the creditors come to the one who bought the property first? And regarding inheritance, the one who receives inheritance is exactly in the same status as the one who passed away. As the pasuk says, you will inherit. When the Torah talks about conquering the land of Israel, it says you will inherit them and you will live in their place, which means that the one who received the inheritance is in the same exact status as one who bequeathed the inheritance. What does that mean spiritually? We are going to receive these godly sparks from the other nations, but where are we going to put them? We're going to put them into the wide vessels of the world of perfection, the world of Atzilus. The difference between the world of Atzilus and the world of chaos is, in the world of Atzilus, there's also godly light, there's also intense godly energy. But in the world of Atzilus, the vessels of the world of Atzilus are able to handle the intense godly light. The vessels are stronger than the light. It's kind of like your body needs to be stronger than any kind of inspiration you have. You can't have that. If your inspiration is stronger than your body, it's going to make you go crazy. It's going to make you have a breakdown. If your inspiration is something that's overwhelming, then it's not healthy. The body has to be stronger than the soul. The vessels have to be stronger than the lights. That's what's unique in when it says in about the world of Atzilus, that they are wide vessels. Wide means that they're not just able to handle the lights and there's some kind of tug of war there, but they're wide. They're able to fully absorb them and limit them and crystallize them and bring them down. Unlike in the world of chaos, the lights are stronger than the vessels. The divine yearning of the spheres of the world of chaos is more intense than their vessels. Kind of like a person whose soul is wants to leave his body, or he wants to do things that challenge his health. So the goal is that we should have these intense lights, but these intense lights should somehow be channeled into the broad vessels of the world of Atzilus. We should have the strong vessels and the strong lights. That's the goal. So that's the meaning of inheriting the lights. And not only do we have the lights of chaos through elevating the sparks, we're able to channel those lights into the world of perfection where the vessels are stronger than the lights. You got it?
Yeah.
The Tayu and Tikkun, the difference between them is in Tayu, the lights are intense and the vessels are small, meaning they're weaker than the lights. In the world of Atzilus, the vessels are large, meaning they're stronger then the lights are weaker. So the goal is to have strong lights, intense lights, and intense vessels. The reason why the vessels shattered in the world of chaos was because the vessels were too weak. The meaning of inheritance is that we draw down the intense lights of the world of Atzilus and we bring them into the wide vessels of the world of Atzilus. This is what the Rebbe spoke about on the 20th of Nisan about our efforts needed to bring Mashiach. On the one hand, we have to have the intense inspiration of the lights of chaos, and yet we have to draw those lights of inspiration into practical ideas. It shouldn't be that we're operating, living out of a suitcase. We have to have practical plans of what we're doing, but it shouldn't be that we're just using those practical things and we're only working with what we have in front of us, not trying to go beyond what we have in front of us.
One question.
Yeah.
When you say go from chaos to Atzilus, chaos corresponds to what sphere?
Tayu, the world of Tayu.
Okay.
Tayu is a world of chaos. So we're supposed to bring the intense lights of that world. So what that means is, like for me, what that means is I have an inspiration. I want to, let's say we're right now middle of our winter camp. So this year I decided, why should winter camp be 1 week? Let's make winter camp 3 weeks because there's many schools have 3 weeks off of school. So we should give them a full experience. But it's a little bit chaotic kind of idea because it's an intense amount of fundraising that's needed. So channeling that to the vessels of Atzilus would mean to have a practical plan. Okay, it's a great inspiration you have over there. It's nice. That's great. Get the kids a full 3 week experience. Now, how are you going to do that? So don't borrow the money. Go out and reach out and work hard and raise the money so that you could actually do that. So it's great. It's a good idea. You want to bring Mashiach? Give the kids 3 weeks of camp. But bring it into the vessels. You have to have the money in advance. You have to have that all set. Or another friend of mine had this idea of finishing a certain amount of Torah books by a certain date. You know the guy? Yeah. And he had this great inspiration. And then he decides he's going to cram it all in before January 1st. So it's great to have that inspiration, to challenge yourself, but it's not great to go sleepless nights for a couple of days. Because what's going to end up happening is going to be the lights of chaos are going to break the vessels. God forbid. Okay, so that's the meaning of in Torah as inheritance. Torah allows us to and guides us to being engaged in the physical world and extract the lights of chaos and to use them in a positive way. And that's the meaning of the pasuk. The Torah that Moshe commanded us is inheritance of the community of Yaakov. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who connects Jewish souls with Torah, and there is a Moshe, an extension of Moshe, says the Zohar, in every generation. So the leader of every generation connects his generation with the Torah. And through the Torah, he achieves the inheritance of the community of Yaakov. The word Yaakov is made up of two parts. Yaakov is made up of Yud Akev, Yud, a heel. And even those people who are heel-like, we're talking about businessmen, people who sit on street corners all day. So if they act, those people who sit on street corners, if they act according to Torah, they do business honestly, they elevate the sparks. That's the meaning of inheritance. They inherit the sparks of Tayu. As the Torah says, Yaakov was a man of sincerity, and he sat in the tents. The word Yaakov, again, is made up of two words, Yud Akev. Yaakov takes the godly light of Yud, of the Surah of Chacham Vatzilus. The source of Yaakov's soul is from the highest part of Atzilus, the place where the Alter Rebbe says, there it's revealed that there's nothing besides Hashem. And he brings that revelation to the heel, to his business, to where he is in the street corners, all throughout the 6 days of the week. So if he sits in the tents, Yaakov is a sincere person who sits in the tents. If he sits in the tents and he learns Torah and he puts aside one chapter in the morning that he studies, and one chapter he studies in the evening, that allows him, that empowers him to get the godly sparks of the world of chaos. You hear, Abzev? That's what the key is over here. You have to have set time to study Torah, and then you're able to extract the sparks. Not just you're engaged with the physical. You have to study Torah every day. The way inheritance works for the nations of the world is not like the way inheritance works for the Jewish people. So, in general, it says if someone does not have children, you give the inheritance to his brother. That's the way it works by our system of inheritance. Who is the brother of Esau, brother of Esav? Yaakov. Yaakov is a brother of Esav. So Yaakov is inheritor of Esav. That means when someone is involved in elevating the sparks and studies Torah at a set time every day, and especially someone who has a merit to teach others, he is able to inherit the sparks of Tayu that have fallen through the shattering of the vessels. He's able to get all those sparks. So the key is, first of all, you have a Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu of every generation connects us with Torah, and he is the one who empowers us to do both of those things. Torah tzivalonu Moshe, to study Torah every day, and number two, the inheritance is community Yaakov. The inheritance means to be involved in the physical and to extract the godly sparks in our life. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'rach.